SRM Institute of Science and Technology, Engineering, Medical and Health Sciences, Management, Dental, Science and Humanities, Law, Agriculture Sciences, Hotel Management. Admissions open.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. The SRM Institute of Science and Technology presents the virtual conclave for career guidance powered by The Hindu. Today, we will be discussing new age career options after school. I'm Radhika Santanam, Assistant Editor at The Hindu, and I will be moderating today's session. Each speaker today will speak for about 10 minutes, and we will then open the floor to questions from our audience. I will start by introducing our distinguished speakers for the day. First, we have Mr. Vinesh Menon, the CEO of Education, Skilling and Consulting Services, Ampersand Group. Mr. Menon in the past served organizations, the banking, financial services, and insurance sector in various senior management capacities before shifting to the education sector about 8 years ago. Since that move, he has been extensively involved in various aspects that add value to the K-12 ecosystem. In establishing 14 K-12 schools from scratch, Mr. Menon has got hands-on experience in almost all areas that define the ecosystem, including learning spaces design, academics and pedagogy, delivery, technology and innovation, content development and delivery, teacher recruitments, training, student enrollments, and marketing. In his current role as CEO, Government Services at Ampersand Group, Mr. Menon is responsible for driving the business for the education and skilling vertical with a focus to add value and bring in transformation to the government sector. Thank you, Mr. Menon, for joining us today. Next, we have Professor T.V. Gopal from the SRM Institute of Science and Technology. Professor Gopal started his teaching career in SRM in 1991 and, in his own words, grew with the institution. He is Dean, College of Engineering and Technology, SRM Institute of Science and Technology. He is Professor at the School of Mechanical Engineering. He has teaching experience of 31 years and research experience of over 15. His interests include computer-aided design, computer-aided assembly planning, robotics, curriculum development, engineering education, academic audit, and pedagogy. Professor Gopal is a member of various academic councils in SRM. Thank you, sir, for joining us today. And last but not the least, we have Ms. Richa Dwivedi Saklani, the founder and CEO of I Know Me Learning, a self-discovery based career and college guidance firm. She is also a career coach and a behavioral trainer. With over 15 years of experience, she has worked with over 10,000 people across ages, ranging from grade 9 students to retired Army Force officers. She also runs professional development training programs with mid and senior professionals in areas like self expression, effective communication, achievement orientation, and teamwork. And I am an Ahmedabad alumnus. Ms. Dwivedi worked as a corporate banker and a stock analyst before entering career guidance in 2004. She's an accredited MBTI trainer and a certified coach with a certificate in college counseling from UCLA. She's the author of the best selling book, The Ultimate Guide to 21st Century Careers. Thank you for joining us today. So, we will start today's session with Mr. Menon. So, I open this floor to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Radhika. And good evening, folks. First of all, from the bottom of my heart, I hope and pray that all of you are safe. Your near and dear ones are healthy, free of all complications due to the ongoing pandemic. Stay safe, everyone. Look, it's always super exciting to really be facing young minds. And my gratitude to SRM Engineering College and the Hindu for inviting me here and giving me a chance to interact with what I believe is a very dynamic force that will shape India's future in the days to come. I must also confess that I have a very selfish reason to be on this conclave, and that is to really get a peep into all your minds and to really learn something from all of you, rather than to really impart gyan to you. And I must say that my fellow panelists are far more knowledgeable on the subject, and I'm sure they'll be touching upon most of the areas and topics that are relevant to all of you. So I'm really here to just fulfill what my moderator, Ms. Radhika, has asked me to do, which is just to give a 10-minute speech. So do bear with me. Look, almost 3.5 decades back, I was exactly in the same place that you guys were, right? I was in that same 10th, 11th, 12th grade class, and I must two things came to my mind when I realized this. One, that I never got such exposure as you're getting to be a part of such talk shows and interacting with thought leaders. And two, my goodness, it's been nearly 3.5 decades between the last education policy and the recent one that has just come. And it's very important for all of you to know why I said this, because the recent education policy that's come about 6 to 8 months back has made significant changes in the very ethos of education delivery, be it for school or for higher education. And these sweeping changes are made to meet the ever evolving dynamic minds of youngsters like yourselves and to meet the ever evolving challenges that India as a nation will pose in the years to come. So, my young friends, there's one thing which I need to tell all of you. You need to be aware of this. You folks are probably living in one of the most exciting times that this world is going through. And I mean this. I'm not just saying this for giving you some kind of a hopeful, motivational talk. I really mean every word of this. I'm currently representing an education services institution called Ampersand. We run schools, we work with the government on education transformation. We run skilling courses for school students and adults. And the role that I have gets me to meet and interact with many people. I meet children like yourselves every day in and out. In fact, many of them who are far less privileged. I meet corporate leaders. I meet entrepreneurs, folks from various industries. Fortunate to be part of platforms like Kiki and CII. And I happen to access and read many reports of all these folks, KPMG, World Economic Forum, etc., on the future of India. And every single one of them has one common mention or one common point that is mentioned. The future of India as a provider for jobs, entrepreneurship, and innovation is unparalleled and second to none. You must keep this in mind no matter where you spend or what you do for the next 3 to 4 years of your higher studies. Please keep this in mind. In fact, our organization and our founder, Mr. Rustam Kerawala, is so obsessed about this that we keep continuously rolling out academic and post content to help reskill, upskill, and to provide the right firepower for students like you as you head into the higher education space. But anyway, that's not what I'm going to really talk about right now. Uh, your parents and all of you will be probably filled with a maze of information. verbiage like data scientists, robotics, engineering, cloud computing, artificial intelligence, machine learning, biomedical engineering, sea exploration, civil engineering, mechanical engineering, electric signals, cybersecurity. And I'm consciously rattling all this just to confuse the space more. Humanities, social science, alternate energy, software development, coding, gaming, fintech, edtech, health tech, domestic universities versus international ones. The list is endless. If you really feel that all this amount of information and data and advice has started to get overwhelming, please know that you are normal. Okay, the very fact that so many of these verbiages exist, the very fact that a lot of research has been done to map future jobs to personalities and courses and career guidance shows that all is well, and you all are really spoiled for choice. Having said that, there is a method and there is a process that has been set by many well-meaning, smart career guidance experts, universities, institutions like SRM College, schools like WebGear, folks like Richa, and they use the right tools to get into your overall thought process. And through a combination of EQ and probably both the IQs, of course, I may not be the best expert here, but intelligent quotients and interest quotient, interest aptitude tests, they end up actually putting a certain method to this whole process of sorry for my power to come back. They actually put a lot of process behind this whole let's call it the madness of trying to choose your career as you go forward. In fact, I'm even told that there are also scientific ways of mapping your brain's innate multiple intelligences through your fingerprints, a process called DMIT. In short, there is a method, don't fear that. And most of all, don't blindly go by hearsay and the zillion WhatsApp messages that keep floating around during this period of time. So while you manage this din, I only have the following 4 or 5 points to say to sum up my monologue speech. One, India is a large country. It's diverse, 130 crore population with demographic advantages with tremendous opportunities in many fields. Technology in agriculture, healthcare, financial services, product development, elderly care, the list is endless. Take agriculture, for example. Agriculture is one of the mainstay for the Indian economy, and it needs a tremendous change through technology. Interventions like drone technology, etc., is definitely here to come. And there is enough to do for each and every one of you out here. I assure you that. Number two, technology is here to stay. I think we should not make any too guesses about it. Technology is here to stay, and it's really going to be an important tool to be used as an empowering platform to bring in scale as well as quality together. To get scale and quality together is not easy, and you need technology for that. However, having said that, just be aware that technology also means staying abreast with its constant upgrades, calls for continuous reskilling and upskilling. All of you are folks who own devices. You all own your Samsungs and your iPhones, and all of you know how many how many versions they've gone through in the last few years. From Note 1 to Note 20. That's the kind of range that it goes through. But that's the way it is. And one must know that the digital universe is today, and I'm told it's almost 60 to 70 zettabytes. That I'm told is almost 40 times the number of stars that you see in the observable stars that you see in the sky. But one area that I just want to leave you all with as a thought is that India is somewhere seen as a lot of, we're seen as a service provider. We're very good in services. Probably we need to start moving to a space where we focus on product development and not just services. India needs ideas. We need to seed a need. Try and get try and identify those spaces and those areas in India which are missing and create solutions using a natural and inborn great Indian talent, and combine that with technology. I urge you to think about this. Number three, big data, data sciences. This is again a big area that's going to be talked about, and that's going to lead to a lot of opportunities in the coming years. Uh, the fact of the matter is that venture capitalists, private equity firms, today when they start valuing startup companies and early stage companies, uh, apart from future cash flows, apart from business models, they also look at the potential size of data it can capture and how it can leverage upon that. So if you have an idea that has got solutions for the mass, be sure that it's going to catch the attention of the prime venture capitalists. Number four, any industry that's gonna emerge in the years to come, any industry will always have expertise that is required around a few areas. Okay, R&D, production, manufacturing, software development, project implementation, finance, legal, team leadership, software services, human resource management skills. None of them is going to change. So this is going to remain, and hence, and I'm sure that all of you are going to be really equipping yourself technically in these areas, depending on your interest levels. Having said that, there are a couple of skills that I'd like you all to hone, especially as you move into higher education. And these are some of the softer skills. And let me just give you a few of them. One, I would urge you all to really work on your communication skills, right? How to communicate your thoughts and how it can be understood by your audience. You see, today we are in a space where there is enough data. Social media, Google, in getting data and knowledge is not of course, that's also very important, but it's not as challenging as it was maybe a decade or 2 decades back. But assimilating the data and learning how to portray the data, or rather explaining what is in your mind, is probably a very important skill that I'd like you to work on. Number two, if you have to really get number one right, you also need to listen. You need to know how to listen. So your listening skills have to improve tremendously. I mean, there are a lot of, we are a large country and Indians love to talk. I mean, look at me, I'm just continuously talking. But we need someone to listen so that they know how to express themselves very well. So get your listening skills honed. Third, how to develop empathy and humility while coexisting in society. Your society is not going to remain very easy to work with, okay? Because there's going to be all kinds of people, diverse. There are going to be people at the extreme set of rural India. There's going to be folks in urban India. There's going to be all kinds of divides that's going to start coming up. Learning to live in that society with empathy and humility is probably very, very important. And a close follow up to this is point number four, where you need to develop a lot of skills to interface with fellow human beings who belong to different languages, different culture, because your world is going to open up beyond your little neighborhood. It's going to go beyond your state. It's going to go beyond your country. It's going to go global. I mean, one fine morning, if Mr. Musk takes us to Mars, we'll have something happening there too. So you have to kind of learn how to uh, be able to communicate with different folks. And five, I think it's very, very important to be flexible, to be able to adapt to changing situations. Don't get hard coded into one place, because we are in an era where we'll have to be fleet footed, we'll have to be really flexible and adaptable. So these few skills I would urge you to hone as you move into the other expertise that you're going to be picking up in the years to come. I must also say that I picked up this very, very important line from Mr. Mohandas Pai when I was in discussion with him. He's, as you all know, a very important face of Infosys of the past. And he was actually saying exactly the same thing. He was saying that tomorrow's citizen who's going to stand out is going to be the person who's able to stand and confidently talk to people and is able to articulate what is in his mind and what is really needed to be talked about. Finally, I want to just end my long monologue by giving you a little example of a conversation that I had this morning, Sunday morning, and I did it consciously with a young grade 12 boy who's not in India. He's in US. He's an Indian, but he's in the US, and he's finished his grade 12. That is son of my friend out there. My friend had gone to the US and based himself many, many years back after his school. And this little boy is now getting into his higher education. And I believe when he was asked, incidentally, this boy has made a robot when he was in grade 8. Okay, he's actually made a robot which goes forward with your thought, and you can concentrate with your thought and make the robot go forward and back. Some incredible stuff. But again, I'm not going to talk about that. But when his father asked him what does he want to do after school and after college, I believe he gave an immediate response. And I was talking to this boy about it today, that he wants to get back to India and set up shop here. Now, for an Indian who's born in America and gone through the rigors of American culture and who's so used to that place, for him to want to come back to India is really saying something. And when I asked him why he felt this, he said that he's been reading so much about India, the tweets, the opportunities, the sectors, the kind of the demographics, the population, and he believes that this is the place where mankind is going to survive and be able to do things. He believes this is a place to innovate. This is a place for ideas to unfold. This is the place where things are going to really happen over the next decade. And that's the reason he wants to come back here. So I just wanted to, share some of these thoughts with you. It's like I just want to end with one line. I think we are in a perfectly nice space, especially for all of you. So I would like you to think and reflect on this one line. If not us, which is you, by the way, if not us, then who? And if not now, then when? Okay, keep this as a standard line in all your thoughts as you move into your higher studies. With that, I'd like to hand over the mic back to you, Radhika. Thank you so much, and thank you all for the patience for listening to me, through this monologue. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Mr. Menon. I'm sure that was very useful. You have covered a wide gamut of things. Next, we move to Professor Gopal. So please.
Thank you, Radhika. Very good evening to all the panel members, students, and parents. Hope all of your near and dear ones are staying safe and healthy. And I'm sure all of you who are preparing for their 12th board exams are in anxiety on what is going to happen in respect of your examinations, in respect of your admissions into institutions of your dream. This would be your first anxiety, immediate anxiety. Of course, the parents too are equally anxious, but in this webinar, I'm not going to dwell into that aspect, the anxiety aspect, but rather the opportunities that will be available to you maybe 4 years from now. The career options are always plentiful for any generation for that matter. But the present generation and maybe the future too are very fortunate to have much more than what the generations, our generations had. The new age career options are so many that I cannot deal with all the options within the given time frame. Nevertheless, I will touch upon some crucial and interesting options. As of now, we are in the midst of an acute pandemic. Hence, I will start with the career option related to the pandemic itself and then move on to the other options. The first and the foremost is, apart from the medical fraternity or the medical option, it's a public health. I don't know how many of you know about the importance of public health. The civic-minded individuals who are eager to enter a service career should think about pursuing a public health degree. The public health, what it means is an academic discipline that focuses on preventing and mitigating the disease outbreaks, such as the coronavirus pandemic, and confronting systematic health challenges that affect multiple people at a time, such as an environmental pollution. In public health, the focus is not so much on treating people like in medical profession when they are sick, but assuring or ensuring the conditions in which they can be healthy. Numerous factors are essential for optimal health, including access to clean water and workplace safety measures. Of course, the public health degree recipients say the COVID outbreak underscores the value of their training as they play a vital role in fighting the spread of the disease. Now we have seen that there is a huge shortage of public health workers during this pandemic condition. What do you need to have to go with this public health profession? Big picture thinking skills, data analysis competencies, and also the creative and strategic mindset, since the public health workers are often asked to propose solutions to major problems like the COVID crisis. You would have seen a lot of advisories that are being given by the public health professions, whether it is masking up or hand washing or whatever it is. So it's a policy, public policy that you will be creating which will really help the entire human mankind. Some of the interesting sects, I would say, in public health is epidemiology, biostatistics, environmental and occupational health, health education and behavioral science, infectious disease, public policy, global health, nutrition, maternal and child health, and so on. Of course, the next upcoming or maybe unexplored profession or career would be the biomedical engineering. Of course, now it's a booming career field as health and technology are coming together to revolutionize the field of medicine. What does the biomedical engineer do? Biomedical engineers actually collaborate with the doctors and researchers to develop medical systems, equipment, or devices that can solve clinical problems. Biomedical engineers are not just there to create equipment and devices, but also computer systems and softwares that are used in healthcare. If you look at the, again, specializations in biomedical, you have bioinstrumentation, biomaterials, which is a very, very upcoming or in need of this particular time period. Biomechanics, orthopedic bioengineering, like there are so many accidents happening, so many handicaps. We need to rehabilitate them with day-to-day devices and all those things. Medical imaging, then clinical engineering, and so on. I can keep on listing these specializations. I don't know how many of you would have heard, but I think some of the things like medical imaging, like CT scan and all, now it's very common to all. I think this should be quite interesting for you right now. Then coming to the more core engineering, like automotive engineering. Of course, this is right now, it's going to become a fantasy world. The automobile industry is going through a radical revolution with many significant innovations in technology. Now, if you look at the automobile itself, previously it was like close to 90% would be mechanical systems and only 10% will be electrical or electronic systems. Now it's the reverse. The mechanical systems would be like 10 to 25%, probably maximum 25%. And the remaining would be like computer systems, then electronics, sensors, remote sensing, GPS, whatever it is. Again, it's all artificial intelligence, everything. So the more modern cars have features which are not limited to big data, cloud computing, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, etc. And now again, if you look at some of the subsectors of this, you would have heard of connected vehicles or self-driving vehicles, which is going to become or has become a reality, in fact, but it's going to become a common thing in maybe in another 5 years. By the time you graduate, that should be a well-known fact. Then vehicle health tracking and monitoring. Then electric vehicles, I think Tesla is coming out with so much of research and innovations, and definitely electric vehicles are going to be the future. Then augmented reality in automotive industry. So you can use this augmented reality to look at the road conditions ahead of a truck in front of you. So right now you don't have such facility. There is a concept called as a blind spot, where the vehicle behind in the rear mirror, you can't capture that or see that if the vehicle is in a blind spot. But if you are going to use augmented reality, you can see what is coming up or what is there in a blind spot. Then comes the product design. Of course, the product design is a very generic one, the product design. If you can spend hours walking down the drugstore aisle, critiquing everybody's products, I would say that you are a product engineer. This is one common statement that everybody says that. Of course, the tools that can be used as a product designer apart from your intuitiveness and your creativity, it's going to be the 3D printing, the virtual reality and augmented reality, artificial intelligence, virtual factories, then data analytics, etc. Again, coming to the civil engineering, the construction industry is not like before, like it was. It's something, I mean, more modernized now. From cloud-based collaborations to artificial intelligence, to wearable technology, to super materials, everything is available in construction sector. There are self-healing concrete. So if you have a crack in your house at the ceiling, now you have the materials. So much of research has gone into materials that a concrete by itself will self-heal. There is no need for any repair work being done. And smart buildings, uh, there are, I mean, even now there are some, what do you call, advertisements. You can see that some of the homes that are being built are all smart homes. So you don't need, I mean, gone are the days when you want a swimming pool at the top of your house and garden, good garden and all. Now it's all again smart buildings. As soon as you enter, the door should open. And as you go to your refrigerator, the refrigerator should open and bring your cool drinks or whatever it is. Maybe a robot will come and help you. So many other things. It's all going to be a fantasy world. And before construction itself, you can actually go through virtually each and every rooms and every features of this building, and then you can buy or suggest some modification. Then you have connected homes. So homes to homes, it can talk. If you have a locked home, you go outside. Then next door, your neighbor can also watch your home. If a robber comes in, it can alert your neighbor. And I mean, this is just a very primitive example I am giving. Then coming to the more attractive one for computer science students, cloud architect, cloud developer. COVID-19 has accelerated cloud adoption, making cloud computing one of the fastest growing technologies. According to a recent report, 88% of the organizations currently are using some form of cloud infrastructure. Even in education institutions, there won't be any laboratories right now. It's all going to be bring your own device, use the cloud licensing softwares, and just sit at any place, not necessarily inside a classroom. You can just sit in a lawn, in your hostel, and still access all the softwares that are required for your engineering or medical, or for that matter, any education, if you want. And cyber security analyst, the exponential increase in cyber crimes, such as breaches and phishing, means global businesses. This actually contributes to 12% of our GACR. Actually, that's a spending actually. So new opportunities will open up for cyber analysts, information security analysts, security consultants, etc. The other options are DevOps and cloud DevOps engineers. Then you have the artificial intelligence and machine learning engineers. If you look at the reports that project the scope for this, 440,000 AI related jobs worldwide are there in maybe in another 2 to 3 years time. Some of the key trends that unfold include AML in business forecasting, analysis, then hyper automation, etc. And even in marketing, you can use AML. AML can be used in any discipline for that matter. And what else? It can be used in risk management and chatbots, virtual assistants, then augmentation, fraud detection, so many other things. Then a most interesting career option would be like UX and UI designers. User experience, UX is nothing but user experience, and UI is user interface designers. Now everything is shifted to online. And since online is more convenient and easy to use, we need to have a good user-friendly interface, whether it's a mobile app or a desktop app or whatever it is. Then IoT engineer, again, I'll just give one simple example. you have run out of your milk for your cereal, but your smart fridge would have already sent an electronic order for milk to an online grocery store. And in fact, you would have stored your credit card details there, and immediately your amount will be debited. And by the time you come from your office, the delivery would have been at your front door. Then you have smart homes, smart cars, smart cities, smart grids, smart supply chain, smart agriculture, so many other things all related to IoT. But only thing is we need to have 5G connectivity. Of course, then comes the virtual reality, augmented reality developers. So again, that's a plethora of options available. I cannot deal with each and everything. But as a student, I would like to just touch upon three important things. Like now, since everything is going to be online, online, online. So the laboratories, the practicals that you will be doing in a laboratory will all be virtual through the augmented reality. You can really touch the machines, touch the product, feel the product, and then do whatever you want, what you will be doing in a physical laboratory. Virtual internships are going to be there. The factories are not going to take you I mean, in a physical mode, they are not going to take you. There will be virtual internships, walking through the factories and other things. You have already seen a lot of virtual convocations happening across the world. IITs, including SRMB, had a virtual convocation. So all these are due to the virtual reality and augmented reality. Then the finance, you have the fintech and banking, financial services, and insurance. And you have the digital marketing. Again, that's a very, very huge market. And you have so much of scope in that, whether it's you are going to be an employee or an employer. So many startups are coming up in digital marketing. I'll just rush to the other things like journalism and visual media. I saw one question immediately when the session started. What should I do if I want to enter into a cinema field? Yeah, any degree is enough, but journalism and visual media will help you a lot. So not only for cinema, so many other opportunities available. But to conclude, I would say that jobs of tomorrow require interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary knowledge. In order to thrive in a competitive, changing environment, engineering and technology students have to think out of box, read industry relevant publications, possess or develop critical and complex problem solving abilities, be more open to taking risks and accepting failures. I'm repeating, accepting failures, which is not found in today's generation. Be more creative and have extraordinary people skills. With this, I wind up my presentation. I thank the Hindu for providing me with this opportunity. Thank you. Thank you so much. Over to Radhika. Hope I am within my time limit.
Yeah, so thank you so much. That was very useful, and we have a lot of questions coming up, but I will direct the questions to you all once Ms. Dwivedi is done. Richa, over to you.
Thank you. And thank you so much, Professor Gopal. It was really interesting for me to hear the specific careers that you talked about. And that's a lot of them I would also echo in my own conversation. And thanks so much, Vinesh, also for giving that more global perspective to all the students about, where India fits into the rest of the world. It's a very important perspective to get. What I'll sort of be covering for you is what I feel are the factors that are impacting the world today. And everybody knows that, as Vinesh pointed out, we are in the middle of tremendous change, right? Everything is changing really, really fast. And it was changing really, really fast even before COVID. And then COVID happened. So, we were already on a very fast pace of change. And then that became 4x because of COVID, right? So we are now in exciting time. Certainly, it's also a confusing time because, so much is changing so fast. So I've tried to put together some of the factors that are impacting this change. And then I've tried to map them to say that, therefore, what are the career options that emerge out of this chaos? Just like, something wonderful emerges out of chaos. So what are those options that will emerge out of this chaos, right? Okay, so I'll go a little fast, but I'll try and cover everything. And then hopefully during our questions, we'll be able to clarify specific things, right? So these are some 9 factors I've put across for you, saying that what are the big areas that create change. So one, of course, is digitization, the fact that everything is online. For example, movies are online, anything you want, you can get research from academia.edu, you can download data from Johns Hopkins University, you can download crime bureau data just sitting at home. Everything is online, everything is available for you, and you can practically work from anywhere if you have an internet connection, right? Then the second huge factor is, of course, artificial intelligence. The fact that things can think, Internet of Things, for example, some of the interesting examples that Professor Gopal was giving us of your fridge that orders milk and so on, right? So artificial intelligence in a number of ways, your phone has so much artificial intelligence. Then, of course, robotics, which is one very, very big factor that impacts things. Automation, robotics, people have been scared saying jobs are going. So the truth is that, some jobs are going and other jobs are getting created. There's no running away from the fact that there's robotic surgery. There will soon be robotic caregivers, nurses, robotic teachers, robotic primary health, service people. So it's really something that we cannot wish away. All right, then blockchain. Now, blockchain is actually one of the least understood of these factors. And however, given the fact that a lot of Indian companies are also creating blockchain-based products and services now, a lot of finance is going to be impacted by blockchain because a lot of financial transactions can happen, but also law will be impacted. Art and entertainment gets impacted because you can copyright your stuff. You can work with people across the world without being scared of losing copyright, and so on. So blockchain is another very big thing that will impact various factors. Then, of course, climate change. Now, climate change is something we're all dealing with, which essentially means that a lot of money needs to be invested in figuring out what we can do about climate change. And, a lot of the energy pre-COVID was that let's get out of the earth somehow, let's go to Mars, let's create something on the moon, right? It does impact the thinking in a very, very broad way of a lot of large-scale entrepreneurs. Then, of course, there's a lot of research happening at the genetic level, and genetic editing is one at the forefront of it. But there's a lot else that is happening. For example, CRISPR, right? CRISPR is a technology that allows you to genetically edit the embryo so that you can sort of almost create made-to-order kids. And it's really confusing scientists and governments and lawyers and people who are looking at ethics and saying what you can do with it. A lot that's also happening in genetics is, like 3D printing of organs. So, there's a lot that's happening on the biogenetics forefront. Then another huge area that's impacting everything, of course, is globalization. Now, globalization has been impacted by COVID, not in a positive way, but in a negative way, the fact that we are now all stuck in our homes. But the mobility across countries had really increased, and it's likely to come back once COVID sort of we are able to conquer COVID. Then it should come back that you can work anywhere, your family somewhere, you can collaborate with people across the world, and the fact that you can easily be in global hub spots, study in various global hub spots, that you're not limited to just your country, your city, your state anymore, right? Another huge area that's impacting, of course, is the fact that we're all working from home, the fact that we are doing this online, that's another huge area of impact. This would otherwise have been a symposium that would be happening somewhere, right? So this will, and I'll elaborate on how that is impacting your work opportunities. And finally, I've put this vague term called technology, which essentially means that, we are opening the barriers in engineering in so many ways that almost nothing is impossible, right? People are talking about in-city air traffic, magnetic levitation for transport, all sorts of technology is possible. And so we're really reaching a point where we're saying that, for example, recently, about 3 years back in China, they 3D printed 10 homes in one day, full homes with a massive 3D printer. Right? So much can happen with technology now that we are really at a stage where almost anything you can imagine and work out is something that we can do. Energy can be created from the temperature differences in the atmosphere, right? So, which potentially means that you can create energy from anywhere. So a lot of this is happening. So if you look at all the factors that are impacting the world right now, this just sort of tried to summarize it for you: artificial intelligence, automation, blockchain, climate change, digitization, genetic editing, technology, globalization, and of course, COVID-19, right? So how does this impact the options that are available for you? I know you're like, okay, that's fine, but so tell me, what can I do, right? So I've tried to then map it onto some of the careers that will derive from this change. So one very big career, which is, of course, the engineering and so on, computer technology, that will come up in a little while, but I'm starting with highlighting some of the things that are a little more unusual. For example, psychology is coming up as a very, very big thing. And I remember one of the students is asking about psychology also in the questions. You'll find that human-robot interaction, making robots human safe, a lot of personal therapy, neuroscience. Neuroscience is sort of like the poster child of psychology today. There's neuromarketing that's happening. Neuroscience is being used in education, in rehabilitation, in occupational therapy. So there's a lot that can be done along the neuroscience aspects. Then design, Professor Gopal covered a lot of the interior and architecture design, the fact that homes are being redesigned, offices are being redesigned. He talked about industrial product design. Fashion design is pretty big today. Fashion designers, as they come out of school, they do get a lot of branded labels that will hire them. So it's not like your own label, but you're doing fashion design and getting a great salary for it. UX, of course, is very big, as you pointed out, right? Then there's scientific research. As you pointed out, scientific research is naturally very, 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 very big today, not just in vaccines, but like in food technology is very big. Energy research is very big, alternative sources of energy. Genomics is very big, a lot of genetic editing. So a lot of money is being pumped by governments, by companies across the world in scientific research. Okay, coming then to the development sector. So a lot of funding is now available for the development sector and international NGOs through multilateral agencies like the World Bank and the UN. And some of the areas where you can do well in the international sector, one is, of course, fundraising. A lot of funds need to be raised, and public policy, which is that, policy papers, policy analysis, and specific specializations like reskilling, food, health, environment, education. Now, engineering, you spoke a lot about it, Professor Gopal, so I'll bounce off that. And healthcare, again, healthcare is obvious to everybody today that there's a reason why they've been called the superheroes and everything, because it's such a critical aspect. So robotic care, surgery, genetic experts, nurses, caregivers, there's a lot that can go on in healthcare. One of the kids was asking also, that is MBBS going out of fashion? It's not going out of fashion for a very, very long time, right? So fitness and wellness is another area, right? Fitness coaches, personal trainers, alternative therapists, yoga, meditation in various different forms is also growing more as an entrepreneurial option or as an individual option, like you become a very well-known yoga trainer, fitness trainer, or you set up a company that's doing that. Then, of course, computer technology, that's like a no-brainer. Everybody knows it's the big area: cloud computing, natural language programming, AI, ML, blockchain, cybersecurity. One of the students was asking, again, very big, go via the route of computer science for that, since that's what you were asking. Data science, as you pointed out, Vinesh, that there's so much data stored in so many computers across the world that, there's more data than there are data scientists today to analyze and to get information out of it, right? Then another big field is, of course, art and entertainment. As you can see, we can't live without Netflix. Nobody can live without their movies, without, online entertainment. So film, movies, video content, they need people who can find a story, write a story. Digital art is becoming really big. And people who can plan personal holidays, personal weddings, personal planners, right? So those are areas that will also continue to grow big. Right? Education is another very, very big area, except that it's changing, and the big areas that are emerging are, online education, instructional design, personal coaching, remote coaching, and a lot of academic research. Then one thing that's never going to go out of style is people who can strike a deal. So strategists, people who are into law, lawyers, cyber lawyers, people who are doing continuity and people who can create strategy around continuity planning for companies, digital marketing, brand experts, investment advisors. And finally, of course, the world always belongs to the entrepreneur who's able to make it big. So, the entrepreneurs would always have an opportunity. And in a time of change, entrepreneurs have all the more opportunity. So actually, if you see, while I've tried to map the factors of change to careers, if you look at this screen, almost everything is there. So it's really the big picture message I want to leave you with is the fact that there's opportunity everywhere today. It's really about you finding your niche. Where do you think you can really outperform and do very well? And then aligning to what the world needs in that field at that time. So that's really all from me right now.
Thank you so much, Richa, for both your talk as well as your presentation. We have a lot of questions, so I'm just going to jump straight into the questions. First, I thought that maybe we could have a bit of a discussion, but I don't think there's time for that. So I'm going to direct the first question at you, Vinesh. One of the students has asked, engineers, we have, okay, this is not a verified statistic. He says 1.5 million engineers are currently out of jobs. So should we take up engineering? Of course, I don't know if it's truly 1.5 million, but also a lot of Indians are out of jobs because of the pandemic. But yes, Mr. Menon, would you be able to address that?
Okay, so I mean, look, I'm not going to get into the statistics for sure,
Yeah.
and I doubt if one could ever make your decisions basis these kind of statements that one gets to see around, because job losses or not having jobs is not just a function of what you're doing in a certain stream, right? And there are so many different factors that come in the way. So I don't think one should ever look at that as a reason for not taking it up. I think you should really look at what probably interests you. What is it that your innate what is it you like doing? What is it that interests you? I mean, if you would like to get into the finance stream, the commerce stream, if you like to get into legal, go through that. But don't not take engineering because engineers are out of jobs. That's one thing which you should be a little careful about. And I think Richa mentioned that very well, that we are going through a change. There could be things that will happen. I mean, don't forget there was a time when we moved into computerization from paper, and that had its own setbacks for a while. But then what happened? Today again, it's all back in play and everything. Computers part and parcel of your everyday life, right? So again, my only answer is, if that is the reason, please don't go through that thought process.
Professor Gopal, we've had at least 6 students ask us, what is the scope in aerospace engineering?
Actually, all engineering disciplines have equal scope, I would say. Getting admission into aerospace is not a big thing, but what you have to do is, in the next 4 years, once you join a particular program, what are the skill sets you are going to develop? That is going to play a very important role. Uh, Even if there are so many job prospects available in a particular field, and as Vinesh pointed out, if you are not able to articulate your ideas, if you are not able to communicate, and if you don't have clear thoughts on what you are going to, what you have in your mind, so it's not going to help. So it is not the question of a particular domain having a better scope or not a better scope. It's all based on the individual. But having said that, the aerospace industry is a very restricted industry. There are a lot of restrictions, government regulations, laws, and all. It's not open to all, though privatization has happened, but it's not open to all to get into that sector. So unlike IT jobs, where you have plenty of job offers with a high paid job or package, you cannot expect such things in aerospace. It is a more limited domain where you will have more job opportunities in government sectors. Private sectors do offer, but there are a lot of challenges in that. So basically, that is the limitation, I would say. Otherwise, aerospace has a very good scope.
Right. Richa, I'm actually going to direct 2 questions at you. One is, since you spoke about Netflix, someone has asked, what are the options in digital content creation? And another, I thought this, there are various questions on this that, we have spoken quite a bit about future jobs which involve technology, engineering, robotics, and so on. But a few students have asked, could you also tell us a few options in non-engineering fields? So one is about digital content creation and the other about non-engineering fields.
So first, about digital content creation, that is a very big field today. In fact, if you look at film, just film by itself is very, very, very big today, because film is used not just for entertainment, but it's used a lot by companies for product demonstrations. It's used a lot in education. You might be aware that some of the leading schools in the country are setting up online divisions, which means pretty much a whole online school, right? So a lot of that education happens through film. If you look at Baiju's contents, that is a lot to do with film, right? So digital content is very, very big, and within which film is the big thing. Film, then animation. These are two very, very big areas. Writing and blogging, that's again very big. It also comes under digital content, right? So it is extremely big stuff. If you're particularly talking about Netflix and movies and such, like, of course, the thing with entertainment is that it's not a career option that's ever going to be laid out for you, saying that, this is your first step, this is your next step. Art and entertainment is always a slightly chaotic field. So if you're going to get into using film and digital content in areas like Netflix and creating fiction and feature films, then you really need to be ready to spend 10 years or so finding your feet and establishing yourself before you can really make the big bucks over there. But the opportunities are huge, right? The second question, which is about non-engineering fields. So some of the non-engineering fields that of course, digital content and art and entertainment is one very big non-engineering field, but the other very big one is psychology. And if you look at Delhi University, for example, Delhi University has very, very high cutoffs for psychology. It's very difficult to get through a psychology course in any of the leading colleges in Delhi University. Cutoffs are 94, 95%, right? And that is because psychology has application in many different fields. Let's start with business, right? So sales and marketing. I was mentioning neuromarketing to you, where they are sort of mapping people's heat waves and what you're looking at in a creative to say that, what part of the creative is working and how the brain is lighting up and so on. Then it has, psychology has a lot of impact outside of business, also on rehabilitation, neuroscience, like I was telling you, in medicine and in rehabilitation of people. Of course, in therapy itself. Then education is another big field that psychologists work with. So psychology, neuroscience, within that there's an area also called cognitive science, which also puts computing along with neuroscience, sort of to say that how do robots learn and how do machines learn and how does that come together. So some of the leading universities in the US have a whole division and majors that you can take in computing-based cognitive science, right? So that's another big area. Then apart from psychology and art and entertainment, education is another big area that you can consider for a career for yourself, which is, not just teaching, but academic research at the professor level. Then school leadership. So many new schools are going to be set up in India, yet to come, international schools. They say a very leading university expert told me that 1,200 new universities are going to come up in India in the next 5 years, right? 1,200 new huge universities. So you can imagine the scope of the opportunity in education, right? So that's another huge field. Social work and public policy is another very, very big field that you can build a career in.
Right.
Media, journalism, media. Yeah, sorry.
Yes, Mr. Menon, you wanted to add something?
I just want to add two specific points that Richard talked about. One is digital content and its application in the education space. I mean, there's a huge lot of that happening in the education space, because what's happening now, especially in schools, is that the learning experience inside the classroom has to undergo a massive change, and that really means moving away from the typical blackboard books to a very, very different form of teaching. And that's all digital content. I mean, she talked about Byju's. I'm talking about digital content, even as simple as getting into a sixth standard classroom and actually making them learn. And don't forget, when you talk about education, and that also connects with the other point that Richard talked about as a sector. Don't just restrict to the private schools that are there or the private universities. There's a huge change happening in the government space. You see, 80-85% of our country schools are government schools. And the children, there are more than 250 million kids in those schools, and the government is starting to get very serious about making a big revolution in that. It's not going to be easy, but they have now started to get into a huge amount of digitization, huge amount of moving from blackboard to digital boards, huge amount of change in tablets, content being loaded onto the tablets. I work with a lot of these governments, and I can see what's happening there. It's a huge ocean out there, and I think what Richard said is absolutely right. I just wanted to add this on, since I'm from the education space and I'm seeing it at ground level. I just wanted to kind of emphasize on that a little more.
Right. And do you think, this is one of the students' question, since you work in this space, do you think a degree is more important or a skill?
Is it for me? I would rather someone else.
I mean, anybody is free to
Yeah.
answer it.
Look,
But
it's
I
okay.
thought we could just talk about the importance of skilling
I'll
also, you know.
no, no, look,
It's not an either or kind of question. So,
yeah, I'll try and give my thought around this. Really speaking, if today you start looking at all the successful folks across the country, and you go back into what they have done in their education, you might see all kinds, right? You might see folks who have really done a lot of work, I mean, a lot of education and got a lot of degrees. You might also see folks who have really not moved beyond a certain sphere of education and they've made it. Now, unfortunately or fortunately, today we live in a system which requires a certain, we're like a pyramid, right? Ultimately, there is a certain amount of pyramid structure that means that you have X number of seats available for Y number of students, and so on and so forth. So there has to be some way of filtering that, and that's why the degree is important. Now, does it take away the skilling part of it? Does it take away the need to be skilled? No, it doesn't at all. But I really cannot answer a degree versus skill. But I'll tell
yeah.
you what is happening in government schools. And this is important because in schools there is something called skilling in schools or skilling in school students, where right from the sixth standard, a lot of the students have started to get exposed to skilling of various forms. It could be as simple as plumbing and electricals and all that. It could also be artificial intelligence and digital marketing. Now, I believe that we should reach a stage or a day in age where credits are given for mark. The mark should be very clearly. If someone is very, very skilled and not really doing well in math, I think that credit should be given so that we're able to get some kind of convergence to that kind of form. And I think we are looking at it as a policy some fine morning. So there is hope in this area, but today, if you ask me one against the other, that will be difficult to choose. Is the way I would like to put it. A tricky question, actually.
Right. Right. Professor Gopal, someone says today there is a lot of emphasis on coding. So a lot of children are pushed into coding classes very early on. So how can parents and students find their strengths without being trapped in this peer pressure to do what everybody else is doing?
Yeah, the student is right. Uh, Coding has become a center stage, has taken a center stage right now. In fact, each and every, many companies have come out with coding training sessions, and recruiters too require or expect each and everybody to code or at least have some knowledge of coding. But definitely not all kids have that coding, what you call talent or even interest in coding. So you can't push any kid into coding uh, unless you are very particular in getting an employment in an IT sector. Otherwise, coding is not necessary. But to identify whether a kid has that coding aptitude or not, it's going to be really tough. There are no hard and fast method by which you can actually identify. But there are some, concepts, Japanese concepts are available. Like you ask the student to or the kid to write uh, in an open way. Don't tell anything. Just list out their priorities. What do you want to become? Uh, just open out for any profession, and then probably you can say to possess or to reach this. What are the skills you would like to have? Whether you have that skill. So you just put a tick mark in each and every skill set, whether my kid has that skill set or not. So that way you can just track down to the required skills. And if you find that your kid has that skill, then probably coding should be your profession. I mean, it's really going to really tough to map the coding interest with the kids.
Right. Richa, someone has asked, how does one find their profession based on interest or competence or the amount of money that you may get while in the profession? It's very hard for a student to know what direction to pursue when all of these become factors.
So, frankly, as first, let's look at the money aspect. So, money a reasonable amount of money, which where you can live a comfortable life, is today available in every field. It's really practically every field, with the exception of very niche areas like, let's say, dog training. It may take a long time for you to build, very financially viable career there, right? Though there are people who do. Right. So I'm just saying that money is available at the same time. And I also mean that while money is available, you can't make money everywhere unless you are cut out for that area. So let's pick up a field like investment banking, where there is so much money. People have made so much money in investment banking. Now, the question to ask is, has everyone who's entered investment banking made money? And the answer is no. There are people who've been laid off, people who just got burnt out and left because they just couldn't handle the competitive pace of the industry. So the question to ask yourself is that, where can I make a lot of money? And the answer to that is that you can make a lot of money in an area where you have natural talent and skill. Right? So it's really that the question is not about should I choose this or should I choose that. You should choose the area where you are skilled enough to do exceptionally well and trust that the money is there. The money is there in academic research today. The money is there in school teaching. So if you start teaching in a school today, now with the 7th Pay Commission, the starting salaries would be at anywhere between 30 to 40,000 rupees. And then you could go ahead to get into school leadership. In about 10 years or so, in your early 30s, mid 30s, you will get opportunities for school leadership, academic coordinator, vice principal, where you are earning in lakhs per month. So I'm just saying that there's the opportunity to earn money is just about everywhere. You have to find what is the thing where I can make money that works for me.
Right. Vinesh, I'm directing 2 questions at you. The first is because you spoke about the importance of communication and listening. One student has asked, how can we develop our communication skills? And another student has said that he or she has a fluency disorder called cluttering. And it's because of this that he or she is not able to talk freely in public or is not confident enough to do that. So will this be harmful for my future? You can answer this and then I'll direct the second question at you. So about communication skills.
Okay, yeah. So, what is the way to improve your communication skills? I think, there are courses that are there in the market who can actually help you with that. I do not know them right now immediately, but I'm sure somebody like Richa will be able to give some insights into that. But the fact is, there are courses out there that will actually help you. The first starting point of communication is to get your self-confidence in place. You need to not have stage fright. You need to be able to, be able to be very comfortable with people and be able to express your thought. Now, it's important to know this, that sometimes what happens is a lot of folks who probably have been raised in an environment where they have not really picked up English, for an example, start getting very nervous when you get into a space where you need to talk English. Now, these are the areas that probably need to not become restricting factors to folks. And there are a lot of these courses that are available to do that. But primarily, I think it's important for you to build your self-confidence and not be afraid to probably be pushback or not be afraid to be told that you're not being understood. I mean, it's fine. It starts with that, and then you can slowly move into actually explaining what you want to say. And communication is not about getting your grammar perfectly or getting your words perfectly. It's about making the other person understand. Remember that you can use sign language to make the other person understand for all I care. So, that's what you need to realize, that you don't have to get stuck into talking the so-called preset way of talking English or Hindi or any other language. So that's important to be known. As far as the second question is concerned, I must confess I wouldn't be able to give you a technical response in terms of how one can undergo a change or undergo a solution there. But I just want to say this, that the person concerned, I don't think this can become a limiting factor by any standards. I mean, there are folks who have all kinds of initial concerns when it comes to their persona. And I think as long as your confidence level is high and as long as you believe in yourself, I don't think this can become a limiting factor. But the specific issue, if you want to solve, I'm sure there must be a way to do that. I wouldn't be able to really give an answer to that specific question. But is it going to be a limiting factor? I can assure you it's not going to be a limiting factor.
Can I add a line there?
Sure.
There are many speech therapists who can help you get over this. You may have watched a beautiful movie called The King's Speech, which is about Queen Elizabeth's father who used to stutter. And it'll give you some inspiration that you can get over it and, do very high level jobs with mastering that issue that you face.
I'm going to direct the next question at all of you, actually. Why is India not investing in enough research at universities, and why do we not have world-class infrastructure? Is that why a lot of students go abroad?
Professor Gopal, I think you would be the best to answer that.
Okay, I would not agree with the first statement, like India is not spending much on research. India is really spending much on research, but you can't compare a developed country like USA or any European country spending lakhs and or billions of dollars in research. But for our country, for our population, for our GDP and all those things, I think research is given a lot of importance. That is the first thing. Second thing is the infrastructure. I think now when they say infrastructure, it's not the brick and mortar. I mean, I assume that it's not like that. But I think the infrastructure, if you take the brick and mortar, I think all universities, all institutions have a very fine infrastructure, and including the equipments and other things we do have. But why people go to the other countries for higher education or whatever it is, that I would say that maybe because of the environment, the learning environment and the pedagogy. I think our pedagogy is little different from when compared to like Netherlands pedagogy. Right from school age, the way of teaching is completely different. So it's all activity based. Whereas now, of course, we are getting into that space. But I think maybe in the school era, we have that activity based. But when it comes to higher education, I think we don't have that activity based learning. It's more of a rote learning or something. So that is actually pushing the students to the outside world. Then probably there are some regulations, regulatory bodies, I would say, where in India it's much more stringent, whereas in other countries the regulatory bodies are not stringent. They do have a framework, but it's all market driven. So a lot of innovations can happen in education and freedom in academic environment in foreign countries, not in India. That's the basic reason I think people go to other countries.
Choose to go to other countries, and I suppose just for the exposure also.
Exactly.
So, and sir, one more question: what are the courses for cybersecurity, and what job opportunities are there if one specializes in this?
Cyber security, actually, it is the computer science only. It's a part of your computer science. And now, of course, as in my speech itself, as I said, that a lot of crimes are happening in cyberspace because of digitalization. It's everywhere, like whether it's a bank fraud or even your private data, whether it's a Facebook or whatever it is. So all sorts of crimes are happening. It's part of the CSC, computer science only. There is no separate stream cybersecurity. It is a subset of CSC.
Right. Richa, are there psychometric tests that students can try to get an idea of the careers that may suit them?
Yeah, certainly the number of psychometric tests that are available, a lot of them are available online. We have a test that's available online that you can use. There are many other organizations that will offer you online tests. Some of them are free. Some of them, you have to pay a little bit for. It's best, however, to do a psychometric test under the guidance of a counselor who's working with you, because a test by itself will probably give you many options, because human beings are complex. There's hardly any human being who you can say, oh, you can do this one job only, right? So for each one of us, for Radhika, for instance, I would ask you, if you were not doing a journalist, I'm sure there are many other options that you could consider for yourself, right? Similarly,
Right.
for Professor Gopal, if he was not an academician and a scientist, he would still have many other options that he can consider. So any test will give you many options for yourself. So if you really want to figure out your path, it's best to work with a counselor who can help you work that out.
Right. We keep having questions come, but I'm just going to maybe direct one or two more and then quickly wrap up because we're definitely running out of time. One question. So a lot of people have been asking about veterinary science. I think there are a lot of animal lovers out here. So what are the career, I mean, is that a good career option?
Yes, certainly it is. Particularly in big cities where or larger towns where a lot of people have pets. It's certainly an option that you can really build your clientele in. So you could be, for example, if you see dentists or doctors, set up your own practice and your own clinic. Definitely veterinary science is growing. Research in veterinary science is also growing.
And Professor Gopal, maybe I'll just direct the last question at you. So some people say that in spite of all the opportunities, only the tech sector, especially the information technology sector, is able to provide a continuous job and a good pay package. Even those who study non-computer science end up in the IT sector. So how do we handle this reality compared to our passion?
I think there are maybe two aspects in this. One is the cultural pressure or the peer pressure, I would say, because every parent wanted their kid to be in an IT industry immediately after their degree, irrespective of what they study. Whether they study biotechnology or whether they study civil engineering, they take pride in telling that my kid is working or my child is working in a particular IT industry. That's actually a cultural issue, I would say, because the moment a child is born, immediately they say, the mom or the father will say, my child would like to, or I would like to make this child a doctor or an engineer. No other profession they will say, I'm sure. But I think this is more relevant towards the South Indian culture, I'd say. If you go to West Bengal or somewhere, I mean, I should not take that name actually, but still, West Bengal, if you see, there are so many, people who are studying geology, astronomy, literature, so many other unorthodox degrees. But in India, it's not like that. Always it's IT. That is the one thing. Second thing is the pay package. Of course, there are a lot of jobs. Job generation is there, sure, and very high package, very attractive package, and lifestyle is very good there. But again, I feel that it's a very a temporary phenomenon, I would say, because when you look at the salary graph, maybe the IT sector, if you join, the initial salary will be very steep. Then over a period, maybe after 10 years or so, it gets flattened. Whereas in a non-IT sector, it gradually rises. Initially, it won't be so steep. So after 10 years or 15 years, if two of our friends or your friends meet, one from, say, IT sector, another from a non-IT sector, maybe they both will be in equal level in terms of finance or whatever it is. So, and there are some risks involved in IT sector, which I think the people who are just joining into IT sector may not know. But whereas in non-IT sector, it is very stable. The risks are less. I will not say risks are not there, but IT sector has more risk prone.
Right. Anyway, I'm just going to wrap up. Sorry, students whose questions we couldn't answer. We're really running out of time. I would just like to thank all of you. Firstly, thank you, Vinesh Menon, for speaking about the significant changes in the education policy, for talking about the kind of opportunities that exist today about data sciences, and also about the importance of soft skills, about communication, listening, empathy, and also very importantly, speaking about the cultural differences and linguistic differences that we have in India and why that should also be, one should also be flexible when one is looking for job opportunities and so on. Professor Gopal, thank you for starting your speech about the careers that may arise as a result of this pandemic. The importance of public health cannot be stressed enough at a time like this. We are seeing, how difficult it is to deal with a pandemic, and so to talk about careers that are meant for service-minded individuals, I think would have been very useful for the students. In fact, I didn't pick some of the questions that students who are service-minded, some of the questions that they asked, only because I thought you had already covered some of it in your talk, and I was hoping that maybe they got some of their answers to it from your talk. And of course, you also spoke a lot about other issues, also about robotics, about cybersecurity, about engineering, and so on. So I think students have really got sort of like a holistic idea about the kinds of careers out there. Richa, thank you for talking about the factors that impact the world. You talked about automation, globalization, what kind of careers we can derive from these kind of changes. I think all in all three of you spoke about everything that we could have possibly fit into this little time that we have had. So I really hope that this was very useful for the students. I think it was. And students, thank you for coming here and listening to all of us on a Sunday evening. I'm sure that wasn't easy, but I really hope that this has helped all of you. Just remember that this is a difficult time for everyone and that we will all conquer it together. But don't stress too much about your career options. I know it's always there at the back of your head, especially when you're finishing school, but do remember that you'll always figure it out. I hope this was helpful for you, and I hope that we were able to answer a lot of your questions. And thank you, SRM University. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Radhika. Bye, Richa. Bye, Professor Gopal.
Bye, guys. All the best to all the students. And thank you, Radhika, for organizing.
All the
It's really
students.
Thank you.